Hi everybody, I'm Cassie. I am a tabletop designer, illustrator, writer, and sometimes I look at games on the internet. So today we are going to be looking at Lies by Omission. This one is going to be crowdfunded soon. I was sent a PR kit by the creator, and it is a narrative-focused role-playing game inspired by Italian Gothic horror cinema. It's set in worlds thick with dread and mystery. Players unravel the truth through tarot-based mechanics instead of dice. There are no hit points, only suspicion. Designed for small groups and slow burn tension, it is a system that rewards caution, curiosity, and a willingness to believe that the truth is never the whole story. So I have a few pieces of media that we'll go through that are part of this crowdfunding campaign. The creator reached out to me and asked if I was interested in going through this, and I said yes. Because of the tarot mechanics and also because I love horror. So I've already taken a look at this a little bit and it's pretty interesting. I just don't know much about Italian horror cinema, but I don't think that means that you can't play. I think there's still quite a bit of opportunity to explore this with your players. So this is the main book. It's about that thick. Before I open it, I do want to say this is a pre-production copy, so you're going to see places where art should be and it isn't right now. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. This is like a very early draft. So I just do a quick flip through. It's very noir-esque, I think. A lot of black and white. There is the character sheet, pretty simple. You have your skills over here. I think that might not be skills. The skills are up here. Sorry. This has to relate to the tarot mechanics. So there are your stats, and then just places for notes and some character art, some personality stuff, and your equipment. So very, very simple character sheet. And just copy it out of here. I do wish this was a little bit less grayscale and a little bit more black and white, like these things were white, just for the sake of being more printer friendly, because this is a lot of ink at the end of the day. Okay, so you open it up and this is the page we're greeted with. Of the room. You were pulled out of your thoughts when an old lady appeared from the back room, short, smiling and welcoming you with a lazy eye. In an out-of-place Alpine accent, she introduced herself as Sophie. So we're already getting like sort of a feel for how the environment and the atmosphere is. I'm getting like kind of Call of Cthulhu vibes just a little bit in terms of the vibes. The aesthetic and I think the settings are going to be different, obviously, but I still feel from an ambient standpoint, it's very Call of Cthulhu. So here's a look at the table of contents for the main book. And one thing I want to point out is we have the section for the players and then a section for the director. And the director is the person who runs the game or the game master. Now, this zine also exists, and this is literally the character zine, and from what I could tell, this is page for page what's in the character section of the book. So it's nice that this exists as a handout or as a way to share the book without giving away all the GM stuff, or if you have players who are like, I don't want to read all of that just to play, this has everything you need. So I think that's nice. That is an option. Okay, so we're going to focus on this book, though, since it contains everything. And then I've got a few other pieces that we'll take a look at as well. So as it states here, the book is split into two parts. The first portion includes rules that players should be aware of, and the second half of the book includes details that should be known to the director. Aside from this book, you'll need a character sheet, a notebook, pen, and pencil. And then the game master will need a tarot deck, pen and pencil, notebook, a campaign, a 20-sided die, and a map. So pretty simple tools. If you already have a tarot deck and a 20-sided die on hand, you're probably set. So Lies by Omission is a tabletop role-playing game system inspired by Gothic horror films that came out of Italy in the 60s and 70s, referred to as giallo. I know I butchered that. I'm so sorry, everyone in the existence. These films regularly depicted everyday characters that slowly begin to uncover occult mysteries hiding beneath the surface. Lies by Omission, or LXO, is a game that is best suited for small groups of players, 1 to 3, and a game master referred to as the director. The system allows players to learn about their setting one piece at a time, sometimes requiring them to revisit older locations when new information has been revealed. It relies on the ability to investigate, explore, interact with the cast, and most importantly, communicate with each other. Combat is often deadly, so be sure to have some backup characters at the ready. Additionally, the players will not need dice to play, although a dice-based variant is available later in this book. Their tests are conducted via a push your luck mechanic garnered from a standard Rider-Waite style tarot deck, the contents of which will evolve over the course of the game. This evokes the growing dread that piles up throughout their investigation. So here is the stat page, and we're going to take a little bit of closer look at the stats. So your character's stats indicate how adept they are at interacting with the world. The higher your number, the more control you have over dread during an interaction. A 1 in a stat indicates a person of average ability. When you're creating your character, you begin with a 1 in each stat and an additional 4 points that you can choose to distribute as you choose. Therefore, a starting player will have a total of 8 points across all of their stats. Additional stats may be rewarded to players by the director throughout the game. So pretty easy. Seems like a typical point-buy system. So yeah, it seems quick to set up a character. And I honestly think the stats seem pretty intuitive as well. So you have communication, represents the character's ability to interact with the cast. A player with high communication score is sociable, can get people to talk, and is great at learning gossip. Investigation. Also, can we talk about how these are coffins? I love that these are coffin shaped. Investigation represents your attention to detail and your general knowledge about the world around you. A high number means that you are good at connecting dots and noticing things that others may not. A low stat means that you miss a lot. Athletics represents your ability to run, climb, and dodge. An athletic character is a great asset in a chase or when breaking into an off-limits area. And then violence is both your experience on the receiving and the giving end. A high number means you are useful in a fight and know how to intimidate people. Low numbers mean that you are not taken seriously as a threatening presence. I have some additional character guidelines, including inventory, goals, backstory, typical things that you see when making a character. And then we get into the gameplay section, which I actually think is pretty interesting. And when you do use the tarot deck, you use the major arcana cards to sort of gauge where you are. I'm going to go ahead and read this section as it explains it pretty succinctly. A tarot deck has 22 cards called the major arcana. These are numbered 0 to 21 and depict individual items or characters. For the sake of this game, they will be used by the director to denote knowledge that the party may gain chronologically. The major arcana cards tell the story of a fool's quest for worldly knowledge and the understanding of oneself. For example, through conversation, your party has discovered that the Order of the Golden Dawn has been operating from the magistrate's house. The director has awarded you with the Star card to denote this revelation. This trophy is now going to allow you to unlock additional topics for conversation with some cast, as well as access the magistrate's basement as a new location to investigate. The knowledge cards apply to the entire party and are not specific to any one player unless denoted by the director. And then you have the Dread deck, and this is made up of the minor arcana. The 56 minor arcana cards form the player's Dread deck and are used when performing a stat test. This one deck will apply to all of the players in the party. These cards are similar to a standard deck of playing cards, as they are typically divided into 4 suits: cups, pentacles, swords, and wands. Although the director may allocate additional meaning to individual cards in a standard Lies by Omission game, the deck is placed face up on a table within reach of all players. So keep in mind, it does say that the deck is placed face up. There is a reason for that. The players will begin with a small amount of dread in their deck. Every subsequent morning of the adventure, before the players wake, the discard pile is shuffled into the dread deck. This is ignored on the first day of their adventure. The director will then draw 1 card per player and flip it face down into the discard pile next to the dread deck. Other story beats will flip cards in the discard pile face up or face down throughout the adventure. Now, what's cool about the Dread deck and the tarot card system is how players test stats. So players always draw cards from the bottom of the deck, and a face-up card is a success while a face-down card is a failure. So that's why it's important that you have your Dread deck set face up. So the more cards that end up face down in your Dread deck, the higher likelihood it is that you will start failing tasks. And I think that's a cool way to add tension slowly to a story or campaign instead of just it being arbitrary based on your skills entirely. There is a variant using a standard deck of playing cards if you happen to not have a tarot deck. And then roleplay is actually broken up with daily activities. So each day players may complete up to 3 activities, morning, afternoon, and evening. Every time your party or character travels to a new location, they will gain +1 dread before any interactions begin. The director will begin each day by describing the weather, which also may affect dread. Typically, the party will discuss their plans in the morning over breakfast and reconvene over dinner to discuss what they learned and what they should do tomorrow. Please note that if the party splits up, try not to discuss with each other what happened until you are all together again. Sometimes players may want to sleep or take a long lunch in the middle of the day in order to prevent themselves from getting overwhelmed by dread. The director may also offer opportunities to relieve dread throughout the game. When deciding on an activity, you'll begin by selecting a location. The director will describe what you see and who is there, at which point you decide on any interactions or stat tests you'd like to attempt. And that's pretty much all players need to start playing the game. Just knowing about dread and stats. Combat, this is the whole section dedicated to combat. It's just a stat check at the end of the day. And then we move into rules for directors, which is about half of the book, as you can see here. And so we have guidance for managing the Dread deck, for managing daily activities, for building a campaign, for coming up with locations and factions, how to develop a mystery, home base, creating NPCs. There's a lot of guidance in here for the GM to take advantage of. I'm actually really impressed with these. It doesn't really seem like these are rules as much as it is advice. And then there is a compendium, and this is basically lists that you can roll on to help generate ideas and just keep the game flowing as you play. And some world building stuff, weather, meals, stress relievers, and then film references you can watch to get some more ideas, as well as a quick glossary to just, like, if you're a little lost, you can gain some footing. So that is the base book. It's a pretty quick, but it still has a lot of content inside of it, lots of atmosphere, lots of things to draw from. The PR kit also came with a campaign, so we're going to take a look at that as well. I wanted to show off the map a little bit for that campaign. I do think it's just so luscious. The paper is just really good. The artwork is just so fun, and it has so much atmosphere to it. La Islola La Crime is a self-contained mystery campaign set in 1972 where truth is fragile. Factions are dangerous, and dread follows every fairy. It uses the Lies by Omission rule set on Isla Mizigilo, a forgotten village in the most vacant part of the Mediterranean. I did want to show the size difference here. There is if you're someone who wants all your stuff to stick together, there is a bit of a difference. And then here is a spine check. They're about the same length from a spine perspective. Honestly, I love this size. I think the square is great. I think it's a great way to have content. You don't have it squished in a zine format. From a storage standpoint, I know this will be a little complicated, but from a referencing and reviewing standpoint, a Wanderhome is also a square, and I just think it is a lot easier to read. There's a lot more room for artwork, and the way tables can be set up. There's just a lot to play with in a square setup, and it's something I want to explore as a designer, and I hope more people look into it as well. Keep in mind that this is an early version of this, so when you're seeing redacted or you're seeing just black squares, that is where art will be in the future. For now, we are just looking at a preview version. A lot of the text might still change. There might still be edits. So keeping all that in mind as we go forward and just take a quick look. You didn't want to come here. No one wants to come here. Hell, you didn't even realize this place existed. It's like it is purposefully hiding itself from the world. Still, you are drawn here. You can't ignore it. Like a worm that whispers in your ear when you're somewhere between asleep and awake. You believe you'll find answers here, even if it's answers you don't want to find. Okay. So we got a table of contents, lots of world building stuff. I love that like economy is called out here. That's fun. We have player characters. So we have factions, mysteries, locations, gossip, action scenes, random encounters. So lots in here so far. This section right here just talks about what the book is for and who should be reading it, and it also gives advice on how to work the rules a little bit into the setting. So like right here when it comes to travel, how to add dread and how much dread to add. In this section we have some history and world building. We have that economy section. I love that lemons are called out specifically. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with fruit and horror, and I mean also lemons help with invisible ink, right? So there's just a lot of fun to have with lemons. Even the trees are called out. That's fascinating. We got some random tables, some more world building, and we start with the actual campaign. So in this game, the players stay at a bed and breakfast as sort of their base, and I think that's really fun. Here is a section of backstories that player characters can use to help fold them into the adventure. We have the factions that are involved in this mystery. Lots of detail for each faction. Wow, quite a few factions. One thing I really like is that it tells you where you are in the book up here in each section, which is really helpful when you're trying to flip through really quickly. Here are the mysteries that are involved, and each mystery is broken up, and we'll go through this really quickly. So these mysteries are presented in 3 parts. Backstory sets the scene for the story that is to come, describing the histories and raison d'etre of the main cast involved. I'm sorry, I don't speak Italian at all. I'm so sorry. Currently is a description of the more immediate events, some of which occur as the players begin their investigation or in the days preceding their arrival. Eventually, then proceeds to describe how the story is intended to play out without interference of meddling hands. So you have, when it comes to mysteries.
Hi, it's Cassie editing this, and I just wanted to dive in a little bit on the mysteries because I kind of breezed through these, and that just isn't fair to the text because it's really interesting. There are 3 mysteries in total in this text, and they're really fun, and that's where the flavor really shines for this module. So, one of them is called Drinking with the Devil, and it's basically about a guy who kind of goes crazy and starts to dream about Satan. And he believes his sacred duty is to force open a gate and free Satan and rekindle his army on earth. And he actually goes through like a kind of summoning and summons a spirit from the outer planets. And then things kind of go wonky. And I think it would be very interesting as a player to engage with a mystery like that. Another one is women relax in a spring, and when they do so, they receive whispers and visions from Minerva, a Roman goddess of war and justice. And these sisters have to do things they don't like in order to satisfy the requirements of the goddess Minerva. But yeah, that is what I wanted to share with you about the mysteries. I did breeze through those really quickly, and they have a lot of flavor, very quick to digest, very easy to understand, and offer
You
a
have your
lot
backstory,
going
you
on.
have your locations and your cast, and then you have those 3 beats, right? I think this is actually a really fun and interesting way to present a mystery. It's like a front and back page, so pretty easy to study and learn. But there are a bunch of mysteries, so take some time to get familiar with all of that. And then here is the location section. The location descriptions really are focused on the mysteries previously. So for additional flavor, it's on the GM to come up with. I think it's nice that there's space for the GMs to add their own piece of flavor, but also as someone who isn't super familiar with these types of settings, I would appreciate a little more guidance and help when it comes to locations. Like, this is the description: the humble home of the sisters, the small village pub and restaurant by the town square. So for me, this would require a lot of prep work, just because I would need to really familiarize myself with like what a small village pub in the 70s in the Mediterranean might look like. I can certainly come up with something on the fly, but if I wanted to have the flavor and evoke a sense of the setting, that is extra work that I'd have to do. Here's a key of where all the locations are. This feels really in depth and like a great way to explore. I can see as a character kind of getting a copy of the map and then marking off buildings as we solve mysteries and talk to people in the cast. So here, some of the locations do get additional information and how they play into the mechanics of the game. I think that's really cool. I do wish there were maybe a few more. There's only 3 here, so that might be something they're adding more of. Or the creators might have just decided that this was enough. This is all you need for the mysteries. Then we have a list of cast members, and this list includes first name, last name, gender, role, age, and faction. I also would have appreciated another column that's like attitude or personality, just something to help with differentiating them. Age is good, but I think additional like a personality trait would have been helpful. Continuing, here's more cast. And then some of the cast members do get further like stat pages essentially. Again, there might be more of this coming as they work on developing this, or this might be it. I can't be certain. But I do, for the pages that exist for characters, I do really like this. I like that there are options of dialogue depending on how the player characters progress when it comes to engaging with this cast member. I like how it says where the cast member is at different times of the day. I think that's great. And it has what people look like. I think that's really cool. And then we have a gossip section where players can sort of get some hints at what's going on. And here's what the table looks like for that. And as the campaign progresses, players might activate events. And these are things that transpire over the course of the game, of the campaign. Here is an example of an event that might happen. The daughters of Minerva have collected the last bit of seed needed to complete the ritual. If the players are outside this evening, have each draw for an investigation stat test. If they draw a success, they notice a slight flickering light from the cliff face near the L04 ruins and L09 Castanalde. It looks like there are a total of 13 events, and I think this is a really cool way to keep movement going and the world like seeming like it operates on its own as the players investigate and as time passes. This is a really, really cool mechanic, and I love it when campaigns have something like this involved, like so people know a clock is ticking. In this game, dreams are used as a way of hinting where players should go next if they seem a little lost. I think that's a great advice, and I think it's also great that the campaign specifically has options for how to work that in. Action scenes, and I really like that the action scenes aren't straight up fights. They can be, but they might be chases, accidents, sudden disasters. They emerge organically from the story tracks or can be triggered by specific events. Some are planned, others arrive like thunder on a clear night. So there's several options here, and then there's also more role tables to help with making them interesting. There are menus here to help sell the world and to help with role play. I love this. I love menus. I love it when campaigns and writers take the extra step to add these type of flavorings to a game. Then we have stress relievers. I love this too because I know as a player, sometimes I draw blank when it comes to like this kind of thing in a game. It's like I know I need to relieve stress, but I don't really know what to do. I, Cassie, in real life would like read a book or go for a run, but I do struggle to figure out how other people would do that, including my characters. So having a list of 40 items is, especially things that are more in this time period, is really nice. So like hearing a folk song played on the radio, listening to some fishermen singing a song a cappella, lighting a candle at the church. Like these are really fun and flavorful. Next we have random encounters. Always love a random encounter. Claw marks scar the sides of your luggage. You don't remember them being there this morning. That's fun, tasty. And then there's the knowledge section, and this is what plays and ties directly with the major arcana cards. Players will have their own description, and GMs will usually have another description as well. Finally, we have story tracks, and story tracks are a mechanic designed to track narrative progress and keep events moving forward as clues are uncovered. Each track is represented by a series of checkboxes, typically between 5 and 10 steps, interspersed with events, dreams, or other triggers that activate as the preceding boxes are checked off. So I think that is another great way to help move the story along and help you as a director or GM remember where people are in a mystery or what they still need to find if you're bad at taking notes, like I can sometimes be. Then we have an additional bibliography, a glossary. I think that's so helpful, as well as a way to keep track of things in the book. I love this. I wouldn't even photocopy this out. Because I only run campaigns once. I don't run them multiple times. I would just like make notes in the actual book. So this is a great little section for keeping track of stuff. And that is Lies by Omission. I think it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of promise with this system. I obviously haven't had the chance to play it, but it seems like it would be pretty easy to get to the table, especially with how simple the character sheet is and the stats are. I think the tarot deck mechanic is really interesting, and playing with dread increasing as things get worse is so fun. So yeah, that's Lies by Omission. I'll have a link in the description for where you can find more information about it, and thanks for joining me.